Hi there. If you're new, welcome. If you're not, you know I don't have an accent. I thought it'd be fun to talk about my birth experience. Yay! You know, it did not really go as planned. Actually, it didn't go anything like I planned. But I thought I would share just in case somebody wants to hear a birth story, you know, and I'm still here. I made it out, but it was kind of traumatizing. So I will warn you, I do mention like a lot of blood in this video. So I'll just start off with my actual pregnancy itself. If I never took a pregnancy test, I would have never known I was pregnant. There were no symptoms. The only thing that kind of hinted me to take a test was I was trying to upload a file on my computer and it wasn't working and I had like a major crash out. And I was like, that's unusual. Usually like I'm more collected than that. And so I took the test and it came back positive. My entire pregnancy, I think I only threw up maybe 3 times, you know. I gotta stop saying you know. That's why I'm refilming this, because the last video was you know. Anyways, so that happened, and I was always waiting for the shoe to drop, kind of, because I've had 3 miscarriages prior, and I was trying not to get attached because I was like, well, you never know what's gonna happen, like you don't got it till you got it type of thing. And I was like, this is a little too good to be true. I was a real pessimist. And my appointments towards the end, like I had a lot of stress tests and things like that because the numbers were looking a little weird. And I had an appointment at 37 weeks and they asked me, do you get headaches at all? Because I guess my blood pressure was very high. And I was like, yeah, I've been getting headaches lately. And then they checked my feet and they were swollen. So then they checked me and I was 1 centimeter dilated. And I had my hospital bag in the car already because I was waiting for this. Hold on. Okay, I'm back. She just knows her part is coming soon, so she wanted to be here for it. But anyways, so at that point in time, I had my duffel bag in the car because I felt her drop and I was like, any day now, you know, I want to be prepared, you know. So we rush over to the hospital that's conveniently next door to my doctor's office, and I'm just like overwhelmed and stressed that when I was in the parking lot, I couldn't understand the elevator because I've never been to this hospital really. I couldn't understand the elevator, and like I was like a dumbass getting in and out of the elevator, and the nurse was getting annoyed with me, which I totally understand because I was just like, what do you mean, where do I go, where do I go, you know. And you know, so God bless that lady for dealing with me that day. But you know, so we get admitted into this holding room where they're doing the stress test, like, you know, to see movement and things like that. And I'm there for a while. And that's when they decide, they get the okay from my doctor to continue the whole labor. Like, they didn't send me home. They're like, yeah, no, you're here for a while. And I truly thought that I was going to give birth that night. This is Monday, by the way. You know, so the morale is high. We're excited. I'm dancing around in my gown. You know, I'm hooked up to the machine. It's very hard to go to the bathroom, but I was ready. So that happened. For whatever reason, my iPad is battling me today. So where I left off, we were gonna be there for a while, and I was just excited. But then as the night came, around like 2 a.m., I was kind of like, something is wrong, because nothing was happening, you know. So they let it go another day. So by the end of Tuesday night, they come in and they're kind of like, yeah, you're not really dilating, you know. So they gave me this medicine that's supposed to make me have contractions. The thing is, though, I wasn't feeling anything. Like, they were looking at the chart and it was like really high and I just was not feeling anything. But I still decided to get the epidural because I was like, let me get it now before it gets bad, you know. And it's good that I did, and we'll go over that in a minute, you know. So by the end of Wednesday afternoon, they break my water. And again, I only dilated to about 6 centimeters. What we did not know at the time is that the baby got stuck in the birth canal. And that is why I was not dilating anymore, you know? So after they break your water, you only have so much time before infection is a high risk and everything. So around Wednesday night, Thursday morning, like around 2 a.m. Thursday morning, they come in and they're like, hey, yeah, you're gonna need an emergency C-section, which was not the plan at all, but it was good I had the epidural so I didn't have to do that at 2 a.m. You know, so I was kind of like, oh, you know, I was like shaking and everything. I was very nervous. And I had amazing nurses, like really fantastic nurses, angels on earth. But the nurse I had for this preparation for the C-section, she was a little rough, I'm not gonna lie, because they gave me this medication that's supposed to stop you from throwing up during the surgery. And, you know, I finished it, I swallowed, and then she like really fast turned me over type of thing, I guess to set something up behind me. And I threw up everywhere, you know. And I guess my body at this point went into shock. I threw up more in the hospital than I did during pregnancy. But I guess my body went into shock because I thought women were supposed to be awake during their entire C-section. Like you could be awake, you know, looking around and things like that. I wasn't. I passed out. I was out, you know. So I pass out and I wake up to the baby crying, you know, and I went, she's so cute. And then like I threw up and passed out again. And, you know, at this point she's born 9 pounds. That's why she got stuck in the birth canal. And her umbilical cord was tied. So it was a blessing in disguise for the C-section because I don't know how that would have turned out with the umbilical cord being tied because they did not get in any ultrasounds. We just saw it when she came out, you know. And this is kind of when the alarm bells started going off. I could not stay up. No matter how much I rested or anything, I just was not waking up. I wasn't really allowed to hold the baby because they were afraid I was going to drop her, so my husband was holding the baby. You know, like he put her on my chest for a few pictures, this and that. But no, there was no coherency. Like I really didn't know where I was. Like I could not, and every time I was up, I couldn't stop shaking vigorously, which I know that's normal after birth, but I don't think passing out is normal. You know, so at this point in time, they told me not much. You know, so Thursday comes, the whole day Thursday happens, and I'm trying to bond with the baby, but like I could barely stay up, so I really did not hold her for like almost 24 hours because I was sleeping. I was passed out, like I just was not waking up, you know. And around Friday, my mom visited, and they were kind of like, yeah, you need a blood transfusion. And I was like, what? And they're like, yeah, no, you need a blood transfusion. And I was like, why? And they're like, you lost a lot more blood than we thought. And I was like, oh, that makes sense, you know? So again, I really did not wake up until that blood transfusion. And I felt a whole lot better. Like I felt like a spark in my step after this blood transfusion. So I was like, okay, well, at least I have that going for me. But the other major issue was my numbers were not going down. My blood pressure, my heart rate were still very, very high. And they didn't tell me this until later on, but they were afraid I was going to have a heart attack because they were not letting me go home. The baby got discharged, but I did not, you know, and I was like begging my husband, I was like, please don't take her, you know. It was very mentally overwhelming because I couldn't really get out of the bed. Every time I tried to get out of the bed, I almost collapsed, so I had to wait a few days to even get out of the bed fully by myself. You know, it was a nightmare. The whole thing was a nightmare. I couldn't even get out of bed to pick the baby up. She had to be placed on me. She wasn't latching right. Like, it was just, the whole thing was a mental battle, you know. So around Saturday, I'm like, okay, I'm going home. Today's the day. Like, I'm going home. Everything's okay. But the blood pressure just was not going down. So they're like, hey, we got to do a few more tests. We'll see how you're feeling Sunday. I'm sure you'll go home tomorrow. And I was like, okay. And at this point in time, like, I'm feeling very depressed because I've seen a lot of death in hospitals. So I don't like being in hospitals, especially when I'm there longer than I'm supposed to be, you know. So Sunday comes along and I'm eating the 5th grilled cheese sandwich in the past few days, and I'm watching Shark Tank, and they tell me you cannot go home. And I was like, why can't I go home? And they're like, because you're at risk of a heart attack because these numbers are just through the roof, you know. And you know, Monday it finally went down enough to where they just discharged me with a lot of blood pressure medication. And usually after you give birth, you don't have to see a doctor until 6 weeks mark, you know, but I had to see a doctor almost the next day. And again, like, the numbers just weren't going down. Before the 6-week visit, I think I had like 3 or 4 visits prior to that. And one of the visits, my heart rate was 140. So they sent me to urgent care, so urgent care could decide that they'd send me to the hospital. And they did a lot of tests, you know, they did the heart, they were like, no, your heart looks fine, but your breathing's a little weird. And your blood test came back, you know, that could indicate that you might have blood clots and things of that nature. So then they did like a CAT scan. Is it a CAT scan or MRI? The one where you in it and it spins around you type of thing. And they did that and they found nodules on my lungs and everything, so that's fun. So now I'm in a perpetual state of testing because they need to make sure that those nodules are not cancer. But hey, at least my heart looks good, right? And I'm not on as much medication anymore, so there's a bright side. So yeah, that's my story. I'm not saying it to scare anybody, but sometimes your birth does not go as planned, and that's okay. You know, as long as you're safe and get out of there somehow. I'm still traumatized whenever I think about my experience. Like, I can only think about so much before I go down that rabbit hole, you know? But yeah, if you'd like to hear more stories, please subscribe, because the next story I'm going to tell is about the demon in my basement. Well, was in my basement. It's a horrible long story, okay? So subscribe if you want to hear that. So anyways, puff, puff, out.